All right, welcome to Chapter 4. This is our study on different materials. Our first material we're going to look at are polymers. You're familiar with a lot of different polymers, you just might not know it by name. Polymer, just breaking down the word, poly means many. So if you can remember that, you can remember that polymer is just a large complex molecule built from smaller molecules that are joined together in a repeating pattern. So it is just the same small molecule repeating in a pattern over and over again. So it might be a couple different ones, like this molecule and this molecule and the original and the next and so on, but it is a pattern and it repeats. So you can imagine these are going to be pretty long molecules, but they are just made up of smaller parts that are repeating. So some examples of your polymers that you are probably aware of, we do break them down into two categories, which are synthetic and natural. Synthetic polymers include polyester, which some of your shirts are probably made out of, nylon, which is what this lemon line here is made out of, and you also have plastics, such as your plastic water bottles, or even your harder plastics like phone cases and the outer coverings of computers and things like that. We also have natural polymers. These are your starches. They are made up of smaller molecules of sugars that just keep repeating in the same pattern. So starches, we got that like potatoes. You also have meats and egg proteins as well. Forming polymers, our most common element for forming polymers is carbon, and we do this because carbon can form 4 bonds. If you remember from the last chapter, it can either gain, share, or lose 4 electrons. So if you have your carbon molecule in the front, in the middle here, it has 4 ways that you can branch off of it to make a bond. Hydrogen, again, only having 1 electron, can only do 1 branch. So this here is your basic carbohydrate, and most of your polymers are going to be made up of things similar to that in different varieties. Carbon has this unique ability to form different chains, and there are 3 different ways we can form these chains. Our friends for carbon, when it goes into making these chains, are normally going to be hydrogen, which is going to be the most common for when we're making our polymer. We also have oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur, and our halogens. They all tend to combine with carbon in chain patterns to form polymers. Again, your polymers are made up of individual molecules that go in a repeating pattern. Those molecules, those individual ones that repeat, are called monomers. So poly meaning many, mono meaning one. So monomers are the single blocks that go together to make your polymer. Whenever you combine them, you form your polymer in your big long chain. A lot of people like to think of this as your paper clips. Whenever you have a whole bunch of paper clips, people tend to chain them together and make a link. You can think of the monomer as a single paper clip, and the polymer as all the paper clips together. Sometimes you get colorful paper clips and you put them in a pattern, so you have like a blue paper clip, then a white paper clip, then a yellow paper clip, then you'll repeat it, blue, white, yellow. And that's just another repeating pattern that you can think of to help form these polymers. So our natural polymers, just some examples of them. You have cellulose, which is a complex sugar. This makes up the cell walls of fruits and vegetables and other plants. You have starches, which you're just going to continually combine different sugar molecules in a pattern to form. You have silk, which actually comes from silkworms, not from spiders, even though spiders do produce a silk. That's not the kind we actually use for our shirts. You have wool, where you can get from a sheep, just by shearing a sheep. And you also have polymers naturally occurring in your body, such as your fingernails and muscles. These are the proteins in your body that your cells are forming, and they are made up of monomers that we call amino acids. So the amino acids chain together to form the long strand of proteins. We do have synthetic polymers as well. You can think of most of these as any of your fossil fuel type situations. Carbon is the main element in fossil fuels, so anytime we have fossil fuels coming into play, it is a synthetic polymer is what we're using. So your raw materials are coal and oil, and you can think of anything that we use coal and oil for is going to be a synthetic polymer. So that includes plastics, carpets, clothing such as polyester, and glues, and gum. Right? You can look on page 121 for further reference to that as well. Just to compare your different polymers, your synthetic polymers have its upsides and downsides to your natural polymers. Your synthetic polymers, because they are man-made, they are cheaper to make. We don't have to wait for nature to do it. And we can also tinker with them and make them stronger. So there is an upside to having synthetic polymers. The downside is that they don't go away. Because they are made out of these fossil fuels, it's hard for our environment to recycle them. Our natural polymers, again, they're going to be a little bit more expensive and they might not last as long, but they are going to be environmentally friendly. And we are looking for ways to be a more sustainable society, so we are going to be looking more into environmentally friendly, naturally occurring polymers as the future goes on.